This episode of Simulation Nation is brought to you by Avkin, your one-stop shop for everything wearable simulator and standardized patient.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Simulation Nation. Today, we are interviewing Karen Schroedle and all of her work with standardized patients over at IU. She has done so much in terms of progressing their standardized patient program forward with really creative and unique approaches, which I think this episode was a little bit of a love letter for me in terms of how
She was fangirling a little bit,
I think that it's so funny when it is like you meet someone from more of that like theater side and them coming in, like them stumbling into it the same way, and you're just like, should we be best friends? Because I really feel like that's what.
And she would be your best friend so fast.
We can hang out. We can hang out. Yeah.
So, but I think the really cool thing with Karen is, so we were doing a Sim Summit. Mm-hmm. By the way, we have Sim Summits every fall and spring, so check it out. But we were at Indiana University at a Sim Summit, and she shared this, and I really felt as though I'm like, that is genius, and we need to get that information out. So I'm really excited to share with our audience what she does that is so creative and innovative.
Yeah, and really listen to her approaches, because I think that that's the part that's so unique, is the intention behind it. And honestly, I've been thinking about this conversation so much after we've had it, because there's so many different ways of taking the same building blocks and using them in different ways, like taking the same concepts but then applying them in so many different areas. So it was a great conversation to just learn more. So even if you aren't currently using standardized patients in simulation, you can still take so many of these building blocks of what she talks about and being able to transform them in different ways for your sim center. So it's great to hear more about her perspective and everything that they're doing over there. So as we dive into our interview with Karen, I just want to tell you a little bit more about her. So she is a standardized patient educator at IU's Health Simulation Center at Fairbanks Hall. She has over 15 years of experience. She started in English and then moved to theater and then has found her way into simulation. What her main focus has been is de-escalating training using simulated patients. She's built strong interdisciplinary learning programs, transformed how staff and learning tackle real-world clinical communication and safety challenges. She marries education and simulation, not just as theory, but how people actually respond in high-pressure moments. Yeah. Let's dive in with Karen and learn more about her approaches.
Karen, thank you so much for joining us on this. Today we have Karen Schroedle. Did I say that correctly? I did. Okay. She is from IU, and she is their SP Educator. Is that your correct title?
It is. Supervisor in the health team world, but in the simulation world, SP Educator.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I have some really exciting things we learned about as we were doing a Sim Summit there, and I wanted to share that with our audience. But before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about how you got into the whole position and role of SP Educator at IU? It's kind of one that sometimes it's a wandering road, so we'd love to hear your story just quickly.
Yeah, it is a very interesting wandering road. I was doing a play with someone who was a standardized patient, had no idea this world existed. And so in my other life, I was a high school English teacher and was in public relations and in theater. I've been an actor my whole life as well. And so this world, when it was revealed to me, if you will, I came for a tour with my friend who was doing simulation work at IU Health. And so I participated in observation and fell in love with it immediately. And as soon as I took a tour, and just like most people in these conversations, right, you don't know this world exists. And then when you know it exists, you're like, of course it exists. And then you're grateful
everything
that it
opens
does.
up.
And then I immediately felt like I wanted to be a part of it. And so in general, my family thinks I've made it all up, right? Because it's kind of a perfect blend of all the things. I love education. I love acting, and the public relations and communication piece is really the highlight of it. And so it was like this weird, perfect storm. And 15 and a half years later, here I am.
Great. Well, go ahead, Megan.
I was just going to ask, and what do you really, I guess as someone coming from the acting world and finding this, what do you really love, or what's the thing that like gets you really excited every morning about this job and being able to go in and do the SP simulation side of things?
I do this whole workshop, if you will, and I truly believe in it. It's about watering flowers, and this is the educational part. So, being an actor, I actually brought acting into teaching to make teaching exciting and fun, because when you have people excited about something, you get their buy in. And I feel like the same thing is true for simulation, education, anything. If you can get people excited about it, the education just happens, right? You snuck it in, so
Absolutely.
like your vegetables
Mm-hmm.
and your children. And so
Yeah.
I feel like we're here to water flowers, right? And I tell the SPs, and they are completely buying into it as well, because it's true, right? You come here and you might see somebody who's just knocking it out of the park, and then you might see somebody who's struggling a little bit, and you've had the experience to be able to help them, and they're all seeds here, and we're watering those seeds, and we get to see them grow, and we get to see them improve, and we get to see them, their coats grow. It's amazing. And so
Yeah.
you buy into this, life is going to knock them down. Test scores are going to knock them down. I'm observing some pretty horrible things are going to knock them down. Our job is to build them up, build them up, build them up, right? And so we're the watering can. I used to say we're the manure, but it sounded terrible. So watering is
Found a
so much
new
better.
one. Yeah.
But manure is effective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love that as an SP educator, you also are watering two sets of gardens, because you have your SPs who are growing and thriving and improving and getting it and having these moments where you're like, oh my gosh, that was so great. And what you did was perfect. And that's, exactly what we wanted to see. But then you also have the students who are learning and growing from simulation. So I got that too, very uniquely, of both sets, where I was watching, baby actors come in, or people who hadn't done it before. And they're like, I don't know. I've never acted. I'm just testing it out. And you just watch them knock it out of the park, and it's like, all the good feelings, all the endorphins of just like watching them nail it, but then also you get the endorphins of watching the students grow and thrive in a good simulation. And I always felt like I got the best of both worlds, because I got to see both sides of it, and just being a proud mama, on the other side of the glass watching it happen.
You are so right. And I get goosebumps all the
Yeah, me
time.
too.
And it's from both
Yeah.
sides. I'm like, oh gosh, they did so
Yeah.
good. Oh gosh, they did so good. And it's watching
Yeah.
a very powerful experience. And having SPs watch each other too, often they're like, oh, that was so good, and it is amazing. I think you sound very much like me. We're just in love with our job, and it's very easy to, I hate to say it, sell something, but it is. It's the buy-in,
Yeah.
it's the sell that makes a program very successful. And you're absolutely right. Buy-in from both the faculty, the students, the SPs, anybody that's using our healthcare system, right, that's going through simulation. We're your biggest fans. It may not feel like it, right?
Yeah.
But we're here to help you grow. And
Yeah.
I know everybody says it probably a million times, growth and simulation might be uncomfortable, but that's where you grow, right? And
Yeah.
we'll sit in the background and cheer you on. We may have to cry for you. We may have to do things, but we're not doing things to you. We're doing things for you. And that's what
Yeah.
is amazing about what we do. And it's very much like being a mom. And I have 6 kids that, also helped me in this experience, because people also say, how do you stay so calm? I'm like,
This is nothing. I've had 6 kids.
we're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I had 4, but one of them was so challenging it was probably more like 6.
It equaled 6.
Yeah.
That's a
So-
fun one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, can you talk a little bit about what components you feel are really super essential in SP training? Obviously, Megan and I have done a lot too, but we always learn from other people. So, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I had the unique opportunity. Well, I say unique. Maybe it's not unique. I had the opportunity to come in as an SP, and I was in this role for about 4 years when the position of SP educator opened up, and I was encouraged to apply for it. And I was like, I wasn't quite sure, am I ready for that? But it, just like anything, I love what we do, and others saw my passion for it and encouraged. And so I did. And the first thing I did when I had this opportunity, and mind you, all the support I ever asked for. So I think that's huge too, right? I
Absolutely.
very rarely, I can't even remember a time where someone says, I don't think so. I thought about, what did I wish I knew? What did I wish I had when I first became an SP, and I just wrote all that down. And then I also talked to others who are far more seasoned about things that they wished they had known or experienced earlier on. And then I incorporated that into some of the feedback. I used to call it hate mail. It's feedback that I would get from faculty. And one of the things that I realized pretty quickly was that it was very, very difficult to be case specific for each faculty and what they imagined. And so what I was able to do with the support of our partners is remove the education for the SPs out of case specific training. And so we developed workshops because I was getting a lot of feedback. Well, this SP said this and SP said that. And I'm not talking about case content necessarily, but feedback on how to do an exam or what it felt like or how to perform a specific exam, right? And so what was happening is faculty members would have different ways of doing things. And then they would remember that one and do it that way, but somebody else felt differently. You know what I'm talking about. And so what we did was I built 5 workshops and became part of the onboarding experience. And so the SPs, when they get onboarded, and the ones that were already here, we built it, put everybody through it, improved it, and now it's part of the onboarding experiences. We put together a head-to-toe exam, the Fairbanks way, if you will, and I got feedback from all of our partners. Hey, I went through Bates. I spent 3 months locked in my room. I'm not a clinician, and so I worked really hard to put together a very generic head-to-toe guide based on what if or how to's, not what ifs. And so I gave that information, put these workshops together, sent it out to all our partners that were using RSPs, got feedback from them, added stuff, took out stuff, modified things, and then that's how we rolled. And so now when they put together what they want us to work on, if it's not how they want us to do it, then pull that piece out. Don't make us assess that. And so we became our own product, if you will. And then now I just send out a menu. What would you like from the hint? What would you like? And so it was much easier actually for the partners that we were supporting and faculty that were developing cases to pick from a menu. Just like anything, it's much easier to modify than it is to create. And if you take some of that burden off of your faculty and your partners, it actually helps streamline the whole situation. And so that was very, very helpful for our program. And again, we had a lot of buy-in. It didn't happen overnight. There was a lot of hesitation. New is hard. Anything new is scary. And so not only did the program blossom, it got so much trust that faculty now rely on the SPs and then spot check videos rather than everyone having to be here. So it's also a huge return on investment on that side of the equation. You've freed up faculty to be able to go and practice because we could handle certain aspects of simulation. So it's been a huge change in our program and a huge benefit, I would think.
Yeah, being able to really centralize that and then have it where it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then again, like you said, selecting from the menu. I feel like, again, I hear so often about standardization, ensuring standardization. How do you get that? How do you get that? And again, for me, it's kind of one of those like, as the SP educator, I can make it super standardized, right? Like I can get it down, but you guys in the faculty role are the one that are all over the place. Like you guys aren't the standardized ones. So as long as I can get them standardized them and I know what it needs to be, and then you guys are just selecting from what we do, we don't have the same standardization issues or concerns, right? And so I think being able to take that into your own hands and be able to figure that out, and then like you said, change is hard, right? It's always a transition phase, but then once you can build that trust, it's like, okay, well, they know what they're doing, and then you get to be able to have a little more leeway with that, right?
Absolutely. And why are we not best friends? Because
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I knew when we came to the Sim Summit, Megan wasn't able to be there, but if I had her with me, you guys would definitely be singing very similar songs for sure.
Similar situations. For sure.
Yeah. And it also makes me, as a nursing educator, we don't typically have SPs, and again, we met with tons and tons of nursing educators, and we don't typically have SPs in the health assessment course. And it makes me wonder, like, what in the world, why didn't we, why haven't we thought of the idea of that return on investment of if we can get, your SP pool, if you can help them with the training, and they may already have it if they're working with a medical school that does this program, why are you not considering the fact that perhaps that might be a better alternative, right? And so it gets the juices flowing. So I always love having these interactions because it always makes me think about new things.
Oh yes, definitely. And we do the nursing event. Just a side note, they have a physical assessment. It's nurse practitioner track, and it's
Yeah.
online. But the assessment piece, they all have to come here 5 times throughout the semester, and they get checkoffs, and they use our SPs in that
Yeah.
way to make sure they're
Yeah.
meeting those expectations. And then not
Yeah.
only do they work with us, they go over and assess their own videos, and then they can see if it matches us. So that's how we got their buy-in, because it did match.
Yeah.
Or if it didn't match, it was really easy to see the discrepancy.
Yeah.
Where it's going on. Yeah.
For sure. So while we were at IU, you and your team had done a presentation on a really cool program that you had developed to create further standardization and understanding. And I just thought it was really innovative. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about that. The tool I'll just quickly describe, and you correct me if I'm wrong on that, and then we'll get into kind of like backing up a little bit and why you created it. But the tool is created with using video clips from movies to identify pain levels between 0 and 10. Would that be a good quick summary?
You were a good listener. Yes, that's exactly right.
Great. So in that, can you talk about why you developed the tool, or what was the gap? Again, I hear what you said as far as even just the physical assessment, but the educator in you is coming out strong. But can you talk a little bit about the gap that you saw for creating these videos? Because it was really interesting to me to hear it from your perspective.
After I was able to kind of lean into what I felt was missing in the program, I said, okay, what is the next thing that I'm not seeing as standardized or that we can improve upon? And it was the portrayal of cases, right? So I knew that they were doing the physical assessment fine. We do case quizzes and check to make sure that when they are portraying a character, I know they know the content. So the next thing that I wanted to tackle was case portrayal. And one of the variables in case portrayal is how you want this character, if you will, this patient to portray pain. Well, that is described in the case by faculty, and it's such a subjective thing in a case, right? And so we were getting cases that would come over and they would say, okay, this is a 20-minute encounter and the pain scale is a level 7. Okay, is it, and they're supposed to be in that pain now. Well, that's a lot of pain and it's constant. And so it was just trying to help faculty understand, what is it that you're asking? What does that mean? And what will that look like in the portrayal of this? And that will that actually prevent you from seeing potentially what it is that's most important of the objectives in this case, right? And so the initial conversation and hope was that I could work with my team, come up with this is what a 1 is, this is all the way up to 10. And when you're writing your case, keep this in mind, because this is how we are imagining it to be portrayed. We have cases sometimes that are 45 minutes. They have to do a full history and a full head to toe assessment, if you will. And so 45 minutes and, we're at a 7 or an 8. Is that really what you want? So let's talk about that. And while I think it helped with kind of gauging how a case can be written, I actually have found that the more helpful piece of that is not only do we use the pain scale to help calibrate the writing of the case, but then once we've figured out what magic number do you want, we'll look for a video clip of a character that's portraying that. So for example, we have a case that the patient's very upset about an error that's happened, and it's an error disclosure case, right? And so I sent over clips. Okay, here's Jack Nicholson, fired up, yelling, not using language, but, being very vocal, right? Or think Aaron Brockovich simmering, you did what? I am not happy right now. So that's a very different experience. And so I would send over certain clips. Okay, who are we looking at? Because that's the language the SPs speak. So it's way easier for me to work out with faculty what it is they want, and then bring the actor's vision to life by speaking their language, which is, okay, we're Aaron today. Okay, we're Robert De Niro, right? We're whomever, right? And so we have this opportunity to kind of calibrate the portrayal of case by giving a very clear example of how we want this to look. And that has been pretty fun to watch. This is the first summer we've actually used it. We had an exam that lasted 11 weeks. Don't ask. And so it's a constant portrayal right over a long duration of time. And so that could be hard to calibrate for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? And so what I did is we had 10 or 8 different cases. So each case had a video clip. And in the morning, I'd have that clip rolling in there on their computer so that it would be a constant reminder, right, of remember. And it's important that student 1 gets the same energy and performance as student 8 in your day, and week 1 is just as good as week 11. And so it really did help the consistency of our case portrayals this summer. And so the feedback has been very positive for the SPs. They love the new training sessions, plus they're kind of entertaining. And if you understand the SP world, you know it needs to be entertaining to keep everyone's attention, right? And then the students have been very receptive. They're like, I don't know necessarily yet if the outcome is where we want it to be, but the case portrayals, the students have been just wowed by it all. Like, this is so
I think that that's an amazing approach too, to think about it from what you're communicating in the case. This is how I'm perceiving what you're writing. Is this actually how you are seeing this? Because they all have patients in their head, right? They all have those past experiences where they think they're communicating in terms of, yes, this is the outcome that I want. But like you said, it's so subjective. There's so many different ways that it can go. And it has to be extremely, extremely detailed if you want it to be so fine line. But I love that idea of, even when you talking about like Jack Nicholson and Aaron Brockovich, like it being like, hey, these are 2 very different ways of expressing anger and frustration or whatever it may be. Which one are we going for here? Because we won't get that feedback in terms of like, oh, they're, portraying it aggressively versus, maybe a down 1 position or whatever that looks like. But being able to say like, no, this is the video clip we're going off of, and that's how we're judging, or that's how we're looking at it. Again, it just alleviates so much of the miscommunication that happens between, the facilitators, the SP educator, and then to the SPs, right?
100%.
Well, and the other big thing is that we've heard about people utilizing video in the past. I've heard that, but they created their own videos. Mm-hmm. And so the time intensity, the amount of work that would go into that, and then the scalability of that is limiting. But the idea of being able, because I was going to ask you, if you've used this on the tool in a different way, but even there you were talking about with Aaron Brockovich versus Jack Nicholson, that's not pain, that's frustration, that's, the assertiveness, that's the tone, all of that, right, for a very different thing. So the idea of being able to broaden that and use it, it makes it so that it's scalable beyond just, oh, okay, we've employed a video company to do this for, pain levels 0 through 10. And now we need to think about mental health issues, or we need to think about, other things. But, and the other fact that it does speak the language of the SPs that are portraying it. So,
but even as from the actor perspective too, from the SP side of it, I love the idea too of it being from the movie, because it also, like when you create it, right, there's only so much you can show in a video that you create, right? It's like we could make it 5 minutes or something, but I can only show so much. But when I know, oh, we're going Aaron Brockovich here, I have a certain idea of what, right, that evokes a certain energy in me where I'm going to approach it. And even if you mix characters, right, even if you said, okay, we're going to mix this and we're going to mix these 2 together, and that's going to create this patient, right, I come from it from such a different mental map now of energy, how I'm entering into the simulation, that I also feel like adds so much to it.
Well, it adds a confidence too.
Exactly, and I really like that component of it. Like, I really like the component of what the energy level of who I'm portraying going into the scenario helps me understand it just so much more than if I watch a video of somebody like, mimicking the simulation or whatever that looks like. And again, I think that's so powerful.
It's a common language even with the faculty, right? It doesn't matter what area that you're coming from. You can all watch this movie and see what it's like, right? And so it kind of gives us a common language to speak, as opposed to this is physician world and medical jargon and how they're describing pain versus an SP trying to figure out what is that and googling things, right? It's a very easy way to kind of bridge that gap and speak the same language
Yeah.
pretty quickly, right? Hey, here are
Yeah.
3 different video clips. What are you going for here? Because that's how
Yeah.
we're going to pick our portrayal. Or am I missing it still? And we can go back to
Yeah.
it. And so,
Well, and I love the fact of that you use it as a negotiating tool of that physically this would be impossible to be a 10 out of 10 pain for 45 minutes. So can we talk about where 10 out of 10 pain may enter into this, or where's the most important points of this, and then can we bring it down to a 5 or something along those lines? Because I think the idea of advocating for the SPs is also really important, because the faculty members are not, if they're encountering a patient that has 10 out of 10 pain, it's not as if the patient has to fake it, right? The patient is not trying to, artificially create it. So the idea of the physicality that's required of that for the SP, you're also able to advocate for the SP that it's probably an impossible task. So let's talk about what's possible and still hit the objectives of the case that you're presenting.
and that's exactly the conversation I was able to have based on a Breaking Bad news case that had to be repeated over and over again. Let me show you what I think you're asking for, and you tell me if this is repeatable. Every 15 minutes or so, if you will, versus how we could portray it. Are you getting the same objectives met by doing this in a more repeatable way? So it was a good way to educate as well, to kind of help navigate that intensity, knowing that they're still going to get the powerful performance, but it doesn't have to be falling apart tears. This is still very powerful. And so let us show you. And so we actually were able to pull out different performances and show, and every one of them they were devastated by. I'm like, and there you go. So this is a repeatable one, so we can do this.
Yeah.
And so it became a negotiating tool, if you will, but it worked, and it wasn't me trying to trick anybody or lay low or get by with something. That wasn't it at all. It's, you can have this as powerful experience, but let me show you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think that's so cool. And I think that, again, just what you guys have done, it's so creative, and I just feel like we just don't, I don't know. I feel like so often in sim, these kinds of really cool nuggets don't get out. Like, I think that a lot of times it's like they just get,
we're here for.
Exactly. And so I'm so excited to be able to just have you on today and being able to discuss this and talk about this, because I think this is going to be helpful for so many people, because I do think that oftentimes, and again, like, I know this is standard, but it's the power dynamic. And I feel like what this does is it also really helps you in terms of bringing everybody the same level. And it's like we're talking down at the same level now. It's the same conversation. And then now you're able to get that translated to your SPs and communicate that. And I think that, again, just being able to get this information out is really great. I'd encourage you to present on this more at like IMSH and ENAC. So I think that this is so great and so helpful.
We'll sign for you.
Exactly. We'll endorse it. But again,
we'll see.
There you go. We're all in support of it. But I think that this has been really great to just hear your perspective on this and hear more information about what it is that you guys are doing. And Amy came back and was raving about it. So I'm really excited that I got to hear more about it, because I think it's so creative and so cool. But yeah, thank you so much for your time and coming on today. We really appreciate it. And this has been really awesome. I think really impactful for a lot of people.
I love to spend time with others who feel like we're ladders in this world, right? We're helping others climb there. If we can get you there quicker, that's what we do. And so
Amen.
I want to speak to people who are in this world and understand and also love to collaborate. So thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
thank you so much. We appreciate it.
If you're at IMSH or ENAC, let us know, and we'll hang out and talk shop. So.
Take you up on that.
All right. Well, I hope that you guys learned a lot from that conversation. Like I said, I have just been really thinking about it as we've gone forward and thinking about so many different ways of including it in AVKIN simulations, into the character descriptions. And I think that the part that I just love so much was so often it comes up that the standardized patient doesn't know the right level of emotion or where to come from, or isn't coming in the right angle. But approaching it from the angle of, no, this is how I go to the different faculty members and the doctors and the nurses, and I show them, okay, when you say 8 anger, this is what I'm thinking. Can you confirm that this is also your thought process behind it? And it just makes it so that everybody's on the same page, and it just really reduces any of that confusion that we hear about so often inside of standardized patient simulation. And I think that it was just such a unique approach to it, so creative, and again, I just think it's help.
Well, I think the other big thing is not just getting everybody on the same page before the simulation, but it's also advocating for your SPs.
Yeah.
That you can't be they cannot be a 10 out of 10 pain for a 25-minute simulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about a 10 out of 10 pain. Where is it most appropriate? Like if they're doing a certain part of the assessment or whatever. But I think that that's another big piece of it is saying, look at the physicality, because as a physician or a nurse, we see patients with 10 out of 10 pain, right? And they might be in it for 20 or 25 minutes. However, they're truly in pain.
Well,
so
and
their
then
body reacts naturally and normally, whereas as an SP, you have to really call on a lot of energy, and they're doing it over and over and over
That's
again.
exactly what I was going to say. They might be in it for 20 minutes, but then they're going to get pain meds. As an SP, I'm going to do it for 20 minutes. I might then get a 20-minute break, but then I'm doing it again.
Yes.
And I'm doing it again, and I'm doing it again, and I'm doing it again. So that's the other difference, is it's like it has to be repeatable for the entire day so that every learner gets the same experience and it's accurate to what happened at 9 a.m. is happening at 5 p.m.
Or it needs to be a negotiation.
Yeah.
Maybe that there's 2 SPs that are running that day all day, and then they're switching in and out, or whatever it is. But I think that that's the really, from my perspective, the idea that everybody's on the same page was unique. But the mind-blowing piece to this was the whole advocacy piece.
For sure.
Because from my perspective, I do look at this as a clinician and like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden when somebody says it to me, I'm like, oh, yeah, that is the big deal.
That makes sense,
right?
yeah.
And that to me really opened my eyes to a whole nother conversation that those videos can offer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And, you know, can we bring it down to a 7 or a 6 or, you know, and even with the idea of, you know, I think it was like disclosing a medical error. And, you know, is this Aaron Brockovich anger or is this Jack Nicholson error?
Yeah.
You know, I love it. I love it. So
I will say too, I have recently been watching The Pit, and for somebody who has a lot of experience as a standardized patient, it was really eye-opening to me to go and see these different ways of how it plays out actually inside of an ER or actually inside of a department, because it helped me see things so much more like, oh, that's how that then plays into it, or this is what was happening beforehand that has led me here. And so this is kind of the backstory, but I encourage you, even if you are a healthcare provider and can see all of the errors and how unrealistic it is because you actually lived it.
it is a drama. It is not.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
Cakewalk.
real life. Yes, exactly. It is not. It's not actually real life. But it is very helpful for those of us who have not actually worked in an ER or actually worked on a med surg floor to see what is actually happening, because it gives us a lot more context. So I encourage you, if you are an SP educator, if you work with standardized patients, go through it. And if there are cases that are applicable, pull out those clips to show them, because even though you can kind of see maybe what's not real, as the SP, it's still very helpful because it's giving me a lot of context and information about what it would be. They do a huge mass casualty. If you do a mass casualty at your institution, this is a really great thing for them to watch and understand what actually is supposed to happen, like where we're trying to go. This is what we're trying to accomplish. It just gives me some reference points to understand what it's like. But that's been in kind of what Karen was saying in terms of we're able to put some visual pieces to what we're trying to achieve. That's what some of these things can do, is give them those visuals for it. So I encourage you to do that. And Karen, thank you so much for your insight on this. Thank you so much for taking the time and talk to us. And let's grab dinner at SSH. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.